The twins get attention in the ninth episode of Kageki Shojo. This is my thoughts on the episode, so let's jump right into it. Summer break is behind them, and it's time to move on to the next semester. And this is where we find out that apparently they are going to be having a grand sports festival, and not only that, which apparently they do every 10 years, not only that, but it's also the centennial year for this particular event, so it's even special version of this particular sports festival. And of course, the girls are going to be taking part of this. And how the first years take a part of this is that they actually kind of support the rest of the school by, doing a lot of the work, heavy work, moving things around, preparing things. And not only that, but they're also going to be taking part in a halftime show. So they have to do some preparation for that. Apparently they're going to be doing like a marching band kind of thing. So it was kind of cute because you had Sarasa talking about how she would love to do the grilled potato, the baked potato something song, which apparently is from something that traveling merchants do. And so one of this older members, this Mirie, who is actually somebody that they'll find out later was one of the troupe members that actually played Juliet, she recalls it, and so she's like, oh, that's very nostalgic. I remember that. Following this, they're in the locker room. We kind of find out that there's apparently this unspoken code amongst the members that you never mention the real name nor age of one of these actual Coca performers. Apparently they're fairies, so they have to have this fantasy about them. So even though, Sarasa wants to mention somebody being older, which is supposedly a bad word, they don't do that. But then, of course, they have to redo these pom-poms, and they go to one of these classrooms to do that, and they end up running into 4 of the leads currently in the Coca, and they're all preparing currently for their big event that they're going to do at this actual festival. And this kind of throws the girls off as having all these 4 top stars sitting in the same room with them. But it was cute to have Satomi there, and Satomi actually acknowledges Ai and Sarasa. It was actually really funny because you had Sawa, who's like this super geek. They're like, I'm surprised you didn't freak out. And she's over there like, man, and she has like this bloody nose going on. But yeah, they kind of note the fact that these top stars are like taking this extremely serious, even though this is just a standard festival. They're all pulling out all the stops. They're, basically calling up all their contacts in order to have somebody help them train that is, extremely prominent in the industry. Well, additionally, the Japanese self-defense force guy, apparently he's going to help one of them. But yeah, as at some point they realize they don't have any scissors, and Sarasa gets up to leave to go to the faculty office to get some, and that's when some of them actually note the tallness of Sarasa and her legs and how tall she is. So she's already kind of getting some note from some of the top actresses. And this is where we actually have our first kind of point in which we have Ando acknowledge Sarasa. She comes there to get these scissors, and he's like, how are you doing? And she's like, what are you talking about? Well, after your whole performance, you've been seeming kind of down. Obviously, what he said to her to shoot her down. And she's like, well, yeah, I kind of had a moment there where I realized that everything that I knew was kind of shot down, but I'm fine now. She's kind of discovered something new, obviously, and so she's moving on. And he's like, that's good to hear. And shortly after this, we have Satomi kind of confronting Ando. You're treating her really nice. I wish you kind of treated me that nicely when I was under your training before. And this is where we start getting into the twins. Essentially what happens is the one that actually got to perform as Juliet in their mock performances, not Chika. Chika was the one that pretty much, she had the opportunity to be Juliet, but she didn't do it. And again, it's odd they didn't. I was expecting at this point they would address why she chose not to, which she technically does later on. But essentially having this lady there, Mirie, who was performing in Juliet, she said, I was so excited to perform Juliet, and I looked up to you, so I decided to perform, similar to your style. I basically stating how much she looks up to her. And during this conversation, you can see in the background, Chika's watching, and she's upset. And you don't quite know why at the time. But it isn't until later, Mirie realized they didn't tell them to be ready for their next day's, I think they were doing marching practices. So she goes over to call out to Chika at that time to tell the rest of the girls that they're going to do this marching practice. But she doesn't realize that Chika is not Chiaki. And so she calls out, she didn't know her name, she didn't realize her name at the time. She calls out and says, Juliet-chan. And Chika knows she's calling out to her, mistaking her for her sister. She turns, looks at her, and then walks away. Doesn't say, hey, what's going on? What do you need? She just realizes she's talking about my sister. She's upset about something, and she walks away. And this in turn, and this is one of those dumb moments, like you have this room of girls, and they're all practicing with you on a daily basis. And for some reason, she doesn't, as a teacher, acknowledge there's two girls that look exactly like each other. She knows these students. They're going to know who they're training. They're going to know that these two girls are sisters and that they're twins. But for some reason, she doesn't know that there's twins in this room for some reason. It kind of implies later on that she knew and that she did it on purpose, but I don't think so. I think that's maybe just me drawing an incorrect conclusion there. But at any rate, the next day she reprimands Chiaki, says, I called out to you and you ignored me. That's, disrespectful. And she's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. You never called. And she's like, no, you looked at me and you walked away. And thankfully, I'm like yelling, come on, somebody. And yeah, thankfully, Sarasa is not your typical anime character that will go, well, let's just let things play out, and then later on, after, 5 years of problems, we'll finally address the issue. No, Sarasa's like, no, I think there's a misunderstanding here, so she explains the situation. But Chiaki is a little upset in the idea that even after this, it doesn't seem like Mirie ever acknowledges her again. She doesn't look at her, doesn't address her or anything, and this kind of upsets her. And eventually it gets to the point where, yeah, the two girls, these two sisters, finally have an outing with each other. They finally have an argument. And according to them, or according to one of them, I forget which one, this is the first time they've ever had a fight. But yeah, essentially, it turns to this aspect that we're kind of digging up old wounds here. And what we find out from their history is that essentially, Chiaki and Chika were both inspired to become a part of, stage acting together. And they always did things together. And their inspiration was these two bunny actresses on a stage that were twins. These are two people that were twins. The bunnies were twins, and they performed together. And so they always did everything together in sync. And their hopes was to go into revue together. The problem is that Chiaki failed to get in, whereas Chika got in. And Chiaki was upset about this. She locked herself up in her room. She didn't eat for 3 days. And eventually, Chika went to her door and said, hey, look, I'm going to decline them. Let's get in next year. And so they together went and, tried again the next year, and they got in. So it always has like this, it's kind of given the sense that obviously Chika is upset about this. She feels that her sister is kind of selfish, but at the same time, Chiaki, we'll find out later, regrets this decision. But the two of them kind of separate each other. One of them stays with Ai, and Sarasa stays with the other one. And so they kind of share rooms with each other so that the two sisters can kind of have some time alone away from each other. And eventually, something really cool happens. And honestly, at this point, I was kind of like, it's not very deep of a story. Like, this is kind of not a integral story that I'm finding all that interesting. It's just two twins that were trying out together. One failed, one didn't, and they tried again together. But it still ended up kind of catching me with the emotion. They have this scene where this other teacher is with them. It was really funny because at some point she's kind of reminiscing, how they're making these pom-poms, and she's like, yeah, this will be my fourth festival. And he has Sarasa's like, this fairy is pretty much painting out how old she is. I don't know if this is a good thing. It's basically showing that she's been there for 40 years. But no, she kind of asks everybody, like, what are you all aspiring to be? And obviously she asks Sarasa speaks up immediately, and she's like, Lady Oscar. Each one of them are all giving their each thing that they want to do. And it's funny because, like, the moment that they started asking this and they're each giving their idea, I'm like, I'm waiting. Here comes the bunny twins. It comes the bunny twins. And it was interesting because it cuts to Chika, and she's not thinking of the bunny twins. She's thinking of something else. And it's at this point when she's about to say something, Chiaki speaks up and says, a bunny. And I was like, oh gosh, you're getting me. Dang it. I wasn't that interested in this story, and now it's like suddenly, oh dang it, this sucks. They're splitting. There's a fork in the road at this point, as it was kind of pointing out. And like I said, it got me just because it didn't have her yell out bunny. It had the other one kind of contemplating something else before the bunny gets brought up. But this scene's kind of followed up with Chika finally meeting with Mirie and confessing that she was the one that walked away. She mentions all this aspects. And it gets even deeper at this point because she's acknowledging that essentially what had happened was that her bad thoughts had compiled upon each other. She's thinking about, essentially what her and her sister went through before. She acknowledges the fact that technically Chiaki regretted what she did. Chiaki regretted making her have to try again. She herself was wishing that she had just gone the first time. And here we have Chiaki was acknowledging the fact that she regretted it based on the fact that when they tried the second time, Chiaki looked for her name first. She looked for Chika's name first. She wanted to make sure that her sister got in the second time and that she didn't cause her sister to lose her one chance that she had. And knowing that she was so happy and tearful the moment she seen her sister's name on there was what she realized that she regretted it and that she was sorry for it. And like I said, she basically talks to Mirie about the fact that she regrets all these things and all these bad thoughts were compounding on each other. The fact that she chose not to play as Juliet, she didn't think that she could do it. Her sister got to do it. The fact that she had this bond with Mirie that she didn't have. All these bad negative thoughts were compounding, in the moment that she called out to her, she made a bad decision. And Mirie acknowledges the fact that it took her a lot to come there and actually do that. That jealousy is a thing in the industry. And she knows the fact that it's going to get worse. We all in this industry face this issue of jealousy. And it's in that hierarchy system that this place technically has. You have each of these poses all the way up to the point where you have the top performer. There is a hierarchy system here. And so there is going to be jealousy. And the fact that she chose to come here and tell her that, is a sign that she has made the right choice and that she's apologetic. And that she needs to make sure that she, keeps her jealousy in check in the future. Mirie also did mention that, she can turn that jealousy into ambition. So it was interesting to have pretty much this moment where the two sisters meet Mirie later on. They kind of, again, as another insight into the industry, it is curious to me how common twins are, especially in specifically this particular industry, because she does note that whenever there are twins, typically they are assigned to different troops. And because there's not really any twin roles, they were asking, like, is there roles for twins? And he's like, well, no, they typically separate twins. But she said what's great is that if you guys do well enough, you can both go out there together at the next festival. So to have this idea that, you guys can perform separately in different troops, have your own fun separately, and then have that moment where you both get to stand on the stage at the next festival together. So yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 9. And like I said, I mean, following so many really fantastic episodes, it's kind of hard to stand out from the crowd. I was technically looking forward to hearing more about the twins and their story. Like I said, a little bit disappointed in it not really being that deep. I do think it's a great story either way. I mean, like I said, it still got me with the whole aspect of the call out of the bunny. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it told so much about the industry and what they're facing either way. It was addressing the aspect of jealousy. It was addressing the aspect of ambitions. It was addressing all these things while bringing these two characters to the forefront to show that they aren't just twins, that they each are essentially going down their own fork in the road. And that was one cool thing they kind of noted, is that in the idea of them being separated into different troops, they will go down their own path. And similarly to what they both decided, what both came to their head when they were asking what your role you were seeking out, they were different. Whereas Chiaki had this idea of, I'm hoping for that day that me and my sister can be the bunny girls on the stage again. Her sister Chika was already thinking about something else. She had already chosen to fork that road. And it was still acknowledging the idea that eventually the two of them can come together. So what if Chika has changed her mind? She wants something new. So what? She goes and does this thing. She seeks out the dream that she seeks. But eventually, who's to say that at the next festival, Chiaki and Chika will be on the stage together as the bunny girls? So still, overall, fantastic episode. Some great moments for all the other characters as well. We had some brief moments, seeing Sarasa finally confront Ando about her whole situation, getting a little more insight into Sawa and her goofy nature and her obsession with Kyoka. Seeing Satomi again, preparing for the festival. Apparently, they have one of their athletes has injured herself, so who did they choose? The one with the long strides. Gonna bring Sarasa into it, apparently, so apparently Sarasa is gonna be doing some running next episode, but Definitely looking forward to more. It's kind of sad because we only have 3 more episodes left. I'm curious at what point they're going to leave this show and if we're going to end up getting a second season. But I'm starting to already feel a little bit of dread at the eventual ending of this season. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. And y'all take care.